Welcome back to another episode of the Canon. I'm your host Terry, and today talking about the Penguin season 1, most likely, whatever. The season that is out. We don't know if there'll be a season 2. Right now it's called a limited series. We'll see. Either way, going to talk about that. Spoiler. So as always, if you didn't see it, come back later unless you want to be spoiled. That, I can't even yell. My throat's a little sore and I can't do that. But I want to yell. But that, just insert witty comment about the Penguin. That mofo, that low down dirty, that's some of my, all those things. But for real, man, F Penguin for real. But we'll get to that. I got thoughts on that. Because I want to talk about the season as a whole. Obviously, we'll touch on the finale. I kind of want to get my nitpicks out of the way, negatives, because there's not a lot. There's a lot of great things to say about this show, so I just kind of want to get that out the way. But I do think that this show, to me, is a 95% on a bad day, and on a I wouldn't even say a good day, just an above average day, it's a 97%. I do think it's an A+. I don't think it's perfect, but it's very close. Just amazing level of detail, of dedication, and just thought process with the whole creation of the show. But there are some things that kind of bother me. Number one, in general, I think the writing started to dip towards the end, where, and again, it's great, but it's amazing. But I'm a very specific grader. So when we're talking about elite perfect type stuff, like I thought that's how they were writing at first. But then, I'm talking about everything is tight. There's no plot hole. There's no logic gap. There's no, nothing. Everything is just, it works down to the little details. But as we went further through the season, I felt like there started to be more and more convenient moments. Not plot holes, not, something crazy, just convenient moments that I felt the caliber of the show, the first half, was better than. And in the second half, they kind of just, and I get it, again, these aren't things that would completely destroy the show, but still, it's just things you notice. Like, for example, like the way Oz escapes after the scene at Monroe's with his mom. Like, okay, really? I mean, really, I felt like that was a little, as you might say, comic booky. that was a little bit of a superhero movie. And I do think the last 3 episodes really started to feel more like the Batman, which is fine, perfectly fine. But again, I just thought the first half of the show, it was tighter writing than that. And I thought it just got a little convenient towards the end. The other thing, which these last 2 I've kind of went back and forth with lately, but with Sophia, I just felt like she really lost her focus as a character, or the show lost the focus of her character after episode 4. Like, once she took over, it just felt like she was just kind of inconsistent, and it didn't really feel like they knew what they wanted her to be exactly. And I do think there's the argument, because like any great show, any great movie, great writing, they don't like straight up tell you everything, but there's an argument to be made that not only as she's leaving towards the plane and kind of looking off in the distance, envisioning a world beyond Gotham, not only giving away the family stuff, not only with her niece at the whatever home she was, where she broke down crying, there's an argument to say that she was realizing throughout, from episode 4 on, that this wasn't really the life for her, and she tried to step into that role, but it wasn't really her. And so I felt, again, I could see that and I can understand that, where you can say, yeah, it didn't feel right, it didn't feel consistent or focused, because that was the point. She didn't really understand who she really was, and it wasn't until the end that she realized that she wanted retribution, but she didn't want to be in this life. And I can see that, but for me, I just feel like there's so, like, prior to episode 4, we gotta remember, episode 4 is a flashback mostly. So yes, we see her differently, but the Sophia that we saw leading up to that is our current Sophia. And to me, she was more calculated, she was more deliberate, she was more ruthless. And for whatever reason, after Oz betrayed her, and it was set up for her to be even more ruthless because she killed the family, and maybe that took a toll on her, but she killed the family, she joined up with Maroni. To me, it felt like, not that she had to be more vicious, but you get to moments like her and Eve, which I think was a great scene, but prior to the scene, or prior to her decision to leave her alive, she just seemed so indecisive. Then you go further, where she obviously with Oz, and we know she wanted to go that conversation to get his mom to reveal stuff, but again, she felt indecisive to the point where he got away. And I feel like there's another moment I'm forgetting as well, maybe kind of when when she found Vic and his mom. Again, to me, a piece of convenient writing. Why in the world would you leave Vic alive? Like, once again, this is a girl who shot a teenager, Vic's friend, dead in the head, who she didn't know. She killed her family. Like, we've already established that she's a certain level of vicious, and after episode 4, it just felt like it was more inconsistent. But again, that could be an argument that it was fine. And then the Penguin, Oz, I just feel like as dope as all the backstory is and all that, and I get it, he's a sociopath, he's this, he's that, but why? I felt like if we never dove deep into his past, I would have been perfectly fine. But since you chose to go there, I felt like we got everything from his formative moment, obviously killing his brothers, and we got everything from his mom's perspective, Rex. We contextualized everything except why. Like, all she didn't, at least from what we saw, even that day. So if you say, hey, we're going to focus on that day, we're not going to talk about prior. The day he killed his brothers, nothing significant happened. I don't know if they said how old Penguin was, but he'd been living his whole life perfectly fine up until that day. And so there can be a discussion that part of it, he didn't start out intentionally to kill them, but then he was okay with it. But I think for me, at the end of the day, he was okay with it, and he formed around that lie to the point where he just made, his dedication to his mom his whole drive. And I just need to know, why was he so enthralled with his mom? Why did he feel so slighted? Like, as far as the attention that they got, like they didn't give me enough of that. Like, and I know they're going to say it's nature versus nurture and all that, but I just never felt a reason why he was a psychopath or a sociopath. He just, like, again, we just dropped in on one day, and we don't really, and that day wasn't significant, and I don't really quite understand why, because there is a why. Like, psychologically speaking, there is a why. And the show could have done that, and they did it. And like I said, had we never dove into his past, I would have been fine because I know what he is today. But they decided to dive into the past, and I just felt like they never really answered that question. Again, all those things, not major, but those were kind of my nitpicks of the show. All right, so other than that, amazing, elite. Move over, Andor. We got another one in the club, where we got world-class TV making to come to sci-fi, and it was great. They grounded it, and they put it in a world without disrespecting the world or the character, and it was great. And so I said a lot throughout those first few episodes, but I think the show continued just to be, like, again, excellent writing and excellent world builder for the Batman and Gotham and all that. And yeah, man, it's hard to say anything else other than that. I think some highlights are just obviously the way they shift and play with perspective throughout the whole entire season, but a lot of poetic moments throughout the season that kind of came back. And one thing I was thinking of after watching so many reactions to the finale is that scene where obviously his mom is debating on killing her son, or obviously having him killed, and Oz kind of gives that speech to her where he kind of saves his life essentially. And I'm not saying that Oz knew. I fully don't think he knew, but it was interesting how, like, he played to knowing what she wanted. He played to the things that really pushed her buttons, and then he said, "Let's dance." And if you remember, he said that to Sophia. Sophia said, "What do you say, Oz?" He said, "Let's dance." But earlier he was saying, like, we should be able to dance. And so I just thought that was a nice little bookend to Oz just always kind of having that superpower of persuasion and observation. That was excellent. And yeah, you really saw a complete character out of Oz. And yeah, man, it's crazy because, like, I think the show's so amazing, but I'm running out of stuff to say. Other than that, it was just amazing. So let's talk about just kind of the main things. He killed Vic. Oh my God. Wait, before we get there, I do got something to say. Sorry, because we'll get to that. But in terms of with his mom, I think people got to realize just how good the writing is and how subtle it is, because there's a lot of people that I saw saying, "Oh, I was with him until he killed Vic," and I'm just like, how? Everybody's like, "Oh, that reminds you he's a bad guy." Like, he was bad the entire time, obviously, but even in the last 2 episodes, he's been terrible. Like, there's been nothing good. And so I don't understand why I hear so many people saying, like, "Oh yeah, I was with him." Like, why? I mean, to me, after the beginning of episode 7, when he killed his brothers, that, as according to Colin Farrell and I think the writers, was the moment that they let you know, yeah, no, this is a no-go. But even if you, for whatever reason, was still riding with him, at the beginning of episode 8, all the sympathy ends. His own mother, the person that he tried to use as a humanizing character, A, she hated him, but also B, we find out, like, because of Sophia, we find out, like, he don't really care about his mom either. And so people, like, talk about, oh, he broke his promise when he said he wouldn't have her be a vegetable. Well, number one, he know what his mom said. He's not in complete delusion. He knows what she said. You even see his eyes. Soon she said, I already know. You see his eyes. He's looking like it's the same way when Alberto laughed at him about, whatever his story was. And it's the same way when Johnny Vitti made fun of him. He had that same look. He's got that I'm going to get you look. And so not only leaving her there as a punishment for what she did, but also because he selfishly wants to keep the delusion going. Whether it's to other people or to himself, he wants to keep the delusion going that, hey, Ma, I did this for you and I'm still doing this for you. Obviously, they show her have the single tear, and to Penguin, to the rest of us, if you're watching the show, you're like, she is in absolute hell. She has to be around him all the time, and she can't even enjoy the so-called perks that she thought she might get. And she's a vegetable, and like everything about it, she hates it. And to Penguin, it's like, yeah, Ma, it's so beautiful. I gave you everything you want. And I'm under no delusion that the Penguin doesn't know what's happening. It's almost the exact same thing as saying, oh, he doesn't realize Eve doesn't love him. He knows. He absolutely knows that Eve doesn't love him. But he wants his delusion, and he's going to get it. And so I'm going to keep you, Mom, here in a vegetative state and act like I'm doing the thing. I'm going to pay Eve to do whatever I want. And to be honest, after the conversation with Sophia, when you think about it, I'm not so sure Eve hasn't done this before as far as being like his mom. But anyway, so and even when he finds out that his mom is vegetative, it's not like, oh my God, my mom, or no, she never wanted this, or even, I don't know, I feel bad that she hates me. No, it was, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? You did this to me. I wanted the approval. I wanted the accolades. How could you take that from me? That was his reaction. And so some people that might not have caught that, I just thought they did such a good job of reinforcing the character they built. And so again, to me, he was terrible the entire time. Obviously the entire time, but even like past halfway where, yeah, well, you might have been rooting for him, but he was terrible the entire time. And so also I want to say that one of the genius, and I don't even, as somebody that writes, obviously I'm not professional, I'm not elite, but as somebody that writes, I often find that once you really understand the story and you start to write, it starts to kind of write itself. And some things aren't even intentional, it just works out well. So I think there's moments where they intentionally did this, and some moments where they might have just accidentally did it because they were being consistent with the story. And that is, I don't think they said this in the show, but a lot of people said this early on, is that what makes Oz so formidable as a liar is that there's a little bit of truth in his lies. And so every time he's going on that big tirade, there's always some truth to it. And I think not even a lie necessarily. Well, yeah, it is a lie. It's a delusion. But the biggest lie that he tells to the world, he tells to himself, and the reason why a lot of people felt sympathetic for him is that he's pushing against an unjust world and system. And there's so much truth to it. Like he told Vic, the world ain't fair. And he tells the underbosses and other gangs, like, these people don't care about you. They underlook us. They don't give us a chance. And a lot of what he's saying is true. Like I said, it's the parts of it that are true that make it so strong and compelling. But even though that is true, one part of it can be true, that doesn't automatically mean that you're doing something noble or that you are the victim. But that's what happens a lot in life. And that's what happens to the audience. We hear that little bit of truth and we start to connect the dots, only for the writers to subvert expectations and knock it down. And I thought that was the beautiful part. Like, no matter what part of the show you look at, it was Oz telling parts of the truth that made him such a strong liar. You look at it with his mom, like the things he pointed out about her, or like young Oz at the club, the things he pointed out about her were true. Now, was he really going to do all those things? Was he really caring about her? No, but he was using parts of the truth. When he told Sophia, yeah, I dimed you out. I didn't think they would do this to you. I think that's true. And then he told the real truth, like, I'm not gonna say sorry for it. A guy like me getting all that don't mean much to you, but it means something to me. And so he's telling you the truth while also lying in your face about why he's helping you and killing your brother. And so that was just a beautiful theme throughout the whole entire show. But for those that had some type of sentimentality towards Oz, even after seeing his mom go vegetative due to a stroke, due to the fact she tried to kill him because she hates him, if you still felt sentiments, then we get to the bench scene, as some people are calling it. And also, I will say, I heard a lot of people say that they thought Vic would die, but they never thought it was Oz. Oz was the first one I thought it would be. I didn't think it was definitively Oz, especially as we went on. I was like, oh, somebody else might kill him. But for me, honestly, I thought the entire time, not entire, I would say definitely after he turned down the bus trip to Cali and came back. So episode 3, I definitely thought from that point on it was going to end with Oz having to make a choice between his mom and Victor. And I thought he potentially would be in a situation where he himself had to kill him. So at first I'm thinking, yeah, Oz is going to kill this guy one way or the other, like eventually. Then I was like, oh, he does care about him, so he's going to be put in a situation he has to make a tragic decision. And so I didn't think it would happen this way, but I definitely thought Oz was potentially going to kill him. And so we get to that part, and like a lot of people, I was like, okay, they made it through. It's not what he thought it would be. And it just, you know, obviously Vic doesn't know, but Penguin knows what he lost with his mom and the delusion he lost and all that, and the truth he's got to live with. It tainted the victory, so to speak. And so we're going to just have that moment where we sit and, you know, reflect on it, blah, blah, blah. And so I got pulled into that, and I'm just like, yeah, like, we made it, but this sucks, and we're going to just keep on moving. I did not feel at all that Vic was going to die. Now, as they continued the scene, because that's not a scene that you need to stay on that long. Like, I'm ready for them to jump ahead and show, you know, the spoils of the war. So as they continued to talk, I'm like, oh no, like, this not feeling right. And then as soon as he said, I can't take you with me this time, for a split second, And even to this day, not to this day, well, yeah, but it hasn't been that long. I still feel like Oz could have just sent him to a new city. Oz could have sent him to Bloodhaven or something and said, hey, run my operations over here. Like, you are a vulnerable point that not a lot of people know, so I don't want to have you around, but you're really good at what you do. Run it out of another city. You know, obviously that's too logical. This is a tragedy. They wanted to make it a tragedy. But for a split second, that's what I was thinking. But then immediately after that, I was like, oh no, he's going to kill him. And honestly, like, him doing it, it didn't trigger me. It definitely surprised me, and I was just moved like everybody else. But it was when he threw his ID into the water that triggered me. I was really sick to my stomach. Like, I was messed up, and I heard a lot of people say that, and I don't, know their reasons. But for me, the honest truth was, again, I wasn't triggered when it happened, seeing it, even though it was messed up, greatly acted scene, looked like he was actually choking him. I was like, this is messed up, but I wasn't triggered. But it was once it was the idea of him erasing Vic. Then as I replayed it, it's a person of color from low income, and obviously that was the whole buildup. Low income, nobody, lost everything, and really fighting because of the way people treat people like him and where he comes from, just being forgotten and erased. And then for Oz to do that to him, that triggered me. A white person, of all things, a white man choking out this young kid of color, discarding his body as it means nothing, and erasing his identity to the world. Now, obviously, his identity not completely erased. His face is fine. They could ID him, but that was just, it was darn near the symbolism of erasing Vic, and that triggered me bad. And obviously, Vic did so much for him. Vic had a good heart. That's why we're upset. But I think those other factors really triggered me too. So yes, he killed Vic. He said it's a weakness. He saw how they used his mom against him. Now, to me, and again, I think this goes back to my point earlier, I do think he's keeping his mom there as more of a punishment to her and kind of his own delusion. Because if what he said was true, he wouldn't keep his mom in his house. Like, if you really felt like family's a weakness and she's a weakness, you would probably have killed her too. I mean, just like the Joker. Well, the Joker was different. She was abusing him and stuff. But still, I felt like you would have got rid of her too. So he goes through that with his mom, doesn't want to go through that again, feels like that's a weakness to him, and yeah, he kills Vic. And we hate Kyle, we hate Oz, we hate him so much, and everybody's saying the same thing. We want Batman to come get him. Speaking of, the bat signal at the end was perfect. Now, I did call a lot of the things in this episode, by the way. As I was watching, I did call a couple different things. I can't even remember them now. It's so much. But the bat signal is one of the things I definitely called. Oh, and I called him giving up Sophia, which a lot of the reactions I saw thought he was actually going to kill him. And they set it up and they always subvert your expectations. But B, I was like, he said, he set this whole thing up with the politicians. And yes, they could still do that if she's dead, but it's a bigger win when you can have a tangible, hey, here's the person. And they got enough evidence to, again, probably say it was her, even if she died. But it politically, optics wise, it was just a bigger win if you actually arrested her. And so I thought 100% the plan was always to give her to the cops. So I wasn't shocked by that. Even though they set up the scene pretty well. They set up that scene pretty well. But either way, the bat signal at the end, beautiful, excellent, cherry on top. I still think the show would have been perfectly, like, there's a lot of hardcore people of or not now, but like recently, where it was like, it would have ruined the show if they even mentioned Bruce Wayne. That's idiotic. You're in Gotham with power players of Gotham. Mentioning Bruce Wayne would have been fine. Mentioning Batman would have been fine. Batman showing up would have been fine for all these crybabies. It would have been fine. They didn't have to focus on him. But if he showed up, I would have been fine with that. But the show does exactly what it needs to do in terms of setting up the movie, adding context to the movie, not just giving us a bunch of characters. And that's where Disney Plus messed up. Not only were they trying to make content, but I do think originally Feige felt this was a good grounds for introducing new characters, building up and supporting the movies, making them better, enhancing them. And obviously for a lot of reasons that didn't work out. But this was perfect. This is a perfect example of enhancing the movie, because when we see Oz, it's going to mean something different. And so the Batman touch at the end was great. And to anybody saying that it makes no sense Batman didn't show up, it makes perfect sense. What happened in episode 1? A mob kid got shot. And first of all, nobody knew about it until the end of the episode. But he got shot. Okay, whatever. Episode 2, and I'm getting a little fuzzy on remembering what happened. Episode 2 is where he was with Maroni and he tried to do that. So they tried to rob drugs that were being smuggled. Okay. Yeah. And then it didn't go well. Okay. Then a murder happened at a funeral at the Falcones in the middle of the day that I'm sure nobody knows about because they covered the bodies up. A couple murders happened, excuse me. Okay. Not bringing Batman's attention. Episode 3, they start moving drugs on a test trial. Not moving Batman. And then Vic crashes into somebody at the end. Okay. Not moving Batman. Then you got episode 4, which was mostly flashback. Then Sophia gassed the family. Police came. Batman's not showing up for that. And then you got episode 5, where that's when he ended up finding the tunnels and stuff. And they did kidnap Maroni's son, which Batman ain't coming for him. End up burning them alive. Nobody knew that was going on. And yeah, they had a shootout at some random place on the docks. Probably not moving Batman. And then, yeah, so on and so forth. So for me, into the explosion down there in Crown Point, Batman is dealing with the aftermath of the Riddler. Obviously they're trying to figure out his place in all this, and his place with the cops, and trying to figure out how the Riddler was able to do what he did, but then trying to deal with all the stuff and crime that comes with the aftermath of that. Batman wouldn't have shown up. But one thing I will say is that it absolutely, I said this from episode 1, and I don't think people even understand this, and this is why I was saying I never had a problem with Batman showing up. Obviously, the show builds the character vibes. It builds up Gotham. It shows you the power players. What I think this show does the best, or the best thing about this show, is that it sucks you into a world. and you're living in that world with these characters, and you just stop, which I did every episode, for a second and think if you turned around in this world and saw a dude in a bat suit beating up half the people. Like, just think about it. Just think about how many scenes where people had a couple guards with some gun. Like, that's their language. It's their power. We got guns. We got muscle. That's the power on these streets. And obviously it mirrors real life. Like, if you walk into a room and have an argument with somebody that got 3 guys with guns, or even 1 guy with a gun, like, yeah, that's, you know, a cook situation. That's messed up. That's scary. But imagine a guy walks in a suit, not a costume, a suit, and people are shooting him. He's not going down, and then he beats up 5 to 6 of the people protecting you. That would be terrifying. Like, Batman in this world, they set this world up so well that, to me, it makes the idea of a Batman scary. And I thought that was beautiful. So trying to think, I feel like there was something else I wanted to say, but we talked about a lot, man. It was excellent writing. Obviously excellent acting. The mom just got better and better and better. Even though I wasn't completely on board with Sophia, I thought she did a great job throughout the whole season. Obviously episode 4 for sure. Colin Farrell, everybody. It was no real bad performances, and yeah, the writing was great. The set, like, everything was great. Trying to think, I feel like there's something else I wanted to say about this show, but that's really it, man. That's gonna kill me. I know I'm gonna remember after I stop recording, but that's really it. I loved it. A+. I personally don't think it needs a season 2. I feel like again, these series should be for enhancing the movies, and we set up the important parts of Penguin. I don't think anything he does in a season 2 is going to be that important enough to make it a series. I think whatever he does now, he's at a level of power where whatever he does has impact on Batman, and we need to see that in the movie. Plus, you should reserve this for building up characters. We don't need to go back to a character. So for me, the Joker's fine. I know they said that that's the rumor. For me, and I trust this team completely, but for me, I would love, what I really would have done, and what I would have loved if they did, was to follow through on that Arkham series, because Penguin sets it up so well, and the premise is it's almost too easy. You can introduce the whole rogue gallery or seeds of the rogue gallery with just that show. A show where each episode is focused on a different villain, and some episodes is focused on Arkham itself, which are villains, or like they're its own villain because it's corrupt. So if you start with like one episode and you have that's about Arkham and the corruption that we saw in the Penguin continuing, and then setting up the characters, and throughout the whole series we see those same hospital staff characters, but each episode is we got a new patient, or we're going to therapy with this patient, and like whatever. And then that's a way where you could each episode show us different people, even if it's prior to them becoming full villains. That would have been a good way to do it. But either way, I like these series to be something that sets up and introduces a character and sets it up where it enhances the movie. So I don't need a season 2. I thought this was great, but if they do it, you know, I trust them. So all right, that's it for me. Go down in the comment section, let me know what you thought about Penguin season 1, that finale. Share it around, get the conversation started, and remember, if you heard it, here's official canon.